preview.
After decades of expansion and colonization across the universe, man's disparate factions are fighting for independence from their homeworld. Strike Suit Zero pits you in the role of Adams, the faceless soldier, as you defend the United Nations of Earth from the colonial onslaught. Though a few nagging issues persist throughout, Strike Suit Zero's strengths continuously rise to the surface, and whether it's the dramatic renderings of outer space, or the heady mix of grace and aggression during combat,
Nice shot.
there's a lot to love about its modern twist on a decidedly stale genre.
It's gonna get bad fast.
Before acquiring the game's namesake War Machine, you have to complete a few introductory tutorials in a standard fighter jet to get acclimated to the controls. Apart from the basic acceleration and braking, jets have the ability to disable incoming missiles by emitting an electromagnetic pulse. While it's a useful tactic, the lack of an evasive maneuver such as a quick barrel roll feels like a missed opportunity for more acrobatic maneuvers that would accomplish the same task. Each of the 4 ships used throughout the campaign are capable of equipping various types of guns and missiles simultaneously. Missiles that lock onto enemy aircraft have a finite supply of ammo, so it's smarter to utilize standard machine guns or plasma rounds to develop your hand-eye coordination, rather than auto-targeting every enemy from the start. Once you deplete your cache of ammunition, you're out of luck for the rest of the mission since there's no items or supplies to be found in the vastness of space.
Missile launched.
Rather than leaning on the notion that space is a mostly empty void, each stage is replete with fantastic images, including gigantic celestial bodies and gaseous nebulae that make the entire experience a joy to behold. Debris and casualties of war decorate the foreground, while jet streams of red and blue dance across the screen. The balance of scale and visual flourishes make you feel like a part of the action rather than a mere observer of distant wonders.
You're being targeted.
The fairly straightforward jet action persists for about an hour or two, and there's nothing here to indicate the excitement of what's to come. The relatively dull jet gameplay leaves a lackluster first impression, but once the game puts you in the seat of the strike suit, it spreads its wings and never looks back.
You must complete each target group before moving on to the next.
Out of the handful of ships you'll pilot during the course of the game, the strike suit remains the most enjoyable by far. Once you've gathered the right amount of flux energy from shooting down enemies and space debris, your suit can transform into a nimble mech with considerably stronger firepower. Every shot you fire in strike mode depletes your flux meter, so finding the balance between your two states becomes a critical skill for success in later missions. The advantages the mech brings to the table include the ability to auto-lock onto the nearest target, and the potential to train missiles on up to 5 enemies at once. But be careful, you can still get shot down if you neglect to watch your back. Once you get a taste of juggling the nimble jet and the powerful mech, it's hard to go back to the less exciting alternatives. Though it's too bad you can't use it in every mission, thankfully there are only a handful where it's unavailable. Strike Suit Zero's campaign will take roughly 10 hours to complete your first time through, but there are plenty of incentives for replaying each mission, including powerful ship upgrades and alternate endings. Every mission has secondary objectives that can be completed to unlock new armor or weaponry, and these tasks generally include protecting or destroying a particular ship during battle. Having to do so while also working on primary objectives feels like an impossible task at times. Frustratingly, the considerable length of most missions ends up being the biggest roadblock to success. As fun as the combat missions are overall, they're generally too long for their own good. With combat and action as fast-paced as it is, it's truly frustrating when a few seconds worth of mistakes wipes out nearly an hour of progress. The story may be secondary to the excitement of combat, but it's definitely more interesting than it initially lets on. Conversations rarely pertain to anything other than new objectives or strategic analysis, and there's virtually no character development. But once the veil is lifted and a certain pivotal character reveals their endgame, these revelations retroactively benefit the events leading up to that point. There are many instances of borrowed inspiration from fairly well-known sources, but the finale lends Strike Suit Zero an identity all its own. Despite its inconsistencies, Strike Suit Zero is one of the more enjoyable and inventive space combat games in recent memory. Thankfully, the lengthy missions and missed opportunities don't detract from the splendor of the world or the thrill of combat, two of Strike Suit Zero's biggest selling points. If you've got the itch for a shooter in the vein of Wing Commander or X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter, playing Strike Suit Zero will take you back to the heyday of space combat in a totally refreshing way. It's a step in the right direction for the genre as a whole, and sets a new standard for arcade-style intergalactic warfare.